It's amazing that this series is 3-0, because to be honest, it doesn't feel completely one-sided. It's been truly riveting and competitive basketball, but in the end, the two most clutch players are both in Dallas Mavericks jerseys. The final score was 116-107 as Dallas defended their home court. Luka Doncic had 33 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 steals, as he's completely changing the narrative about himself as a defensive player. Kyrie Irving had 33 points on the night as well, and once again, these two were clutch down the stretch. And personally, I think they're just continuing to improve their argument for the most clutch 1-2 punch in basketball history. They're probably not going to get that kind of credit until they start winning some rings, but they might get one this year. Now, every game in this series has been decided by single digits, so if you ask me, the difference is simply that the most clutch players are on Dallas. When the moments are the biggest and the brightest, they always step up, and the same can't be said for Minnesota. But obviously, it's not just Kyrie and Luka. A lot of these Mavericks players step up when they're called upon. And I gotta say, shout out to Daniel Gafford, man. Dallas lost Dereck Lively as he took a brutal shot to the back of his head from the knee of Karl-Anthony Towns, and I gotta say, that looked really scary as he was walking off, so prayers up for Dereck Lively. But at that point, Dallas was up by 10 points, and if you think about everything Lively does for his team, he is a great facilitator, he is a great rim protector, he is a great lob finisher, as him and Luka have tremendous chemistry, and he provides plenty of energy from his position. So at first, this seemed like a huge loss. But who was the guy making the big plays down the stretch, and who came in with possibly even more energy? Daniel Gafford. This guy was fierce around the rim, both offensively and defensively, and really had some signature moments in this game. Now back to their star player Luka. From a health and agility standpoint, this is the best that Luka has looked in quite a while. Beyond that, it also looked like he had some of his quickness and some pep in his step. Some people misunderstood me in the last video, a lot of Mavericks and Luka Doncic fans, when I said I didn't expect him to play this well, and that has nothing to do with him as an individual player. I love Luka's ability, I've been singing his praises throughout the regular season, I was glazing him when he had that 60-point performance earlier in the year, but I just didn't think he looked right. After the OKC series, his numbers were down, Lou Dort was basically tackling him every other play, and then in this series, he looked a step slower, he was constantly in pain, even when he was walking through the tunnel, his steps seemed off, and again, he was constantly covered in blood, and usually, your knees are a pretty big deal in the game of basketball. So again, just him pushing through that was the part that I saw difficult. But he's done it, man, and now he looks like he's starting to heal up, and I don't see those knees slowing him down, which is truly scary, because now you're getting fully unleashed Luka. And by the way, can I just say that I absolutely love the Luka Doncic and Rudy Gobert beef? This is the kind of rivalry and the kind of elements to a basketball game that old school NBA fans like myself just love. Like, this takes me back to the 90s, just seeing them chirping at each other, seeing them staring each other down, seeing the game get physical, because it goes back to Rudy just clotheslining him across the chest, hitting that game winner, and they stared each other down a couple times during this game, which just adds an element of excitement, intensity, and suspense to this series, so that has been fantastic. You really do get the impression that these guys just despise each other. Now to touch on Minnesota, they really did change up their game plan this game. Anthony Edwards got taken off of Kyrie, and as I said in the last video, him guarding Kyrie in the first place was a major mistake. So although it was the right call, it's probably too little too late. But it is worth mentioning, although Kyrie shouldn't be Anthony Edwards' assignment, you still gotta accept the challenge when it presents itself, and late in the game was tied. Ant was guarding Kyrie, and he seemed so scared of the matchup that he asked for a switch, and amidst the switch, he didn't pay attention to the guy he was supposed to be guarding, and they ended up paying for it as they fell behind by 3 points. That was one of the biggest baskets of the entire game, and Ant got lost on that simply because he didn't want to accept the challenge of guarding Kyrie. So it's worth mentioning, there's a time and a place. Because of this adjustment, Edwards looked like his usual self. He was attacking more offensively, he had more energy to consistently get to the rim, and because the defense was collapsing upon him, a lot of those shooters on the perimeter were starting to open up and he was finding those guys. And when he made that incredible dunk that stole the momentum, it looked like Minnesota might seriously have a chance at taking this game. But again, you know how it goes. Luka and Kyrie were simply too clutch down the stretch. I will say though, I'm happy to see Edwards have a more respectable performance as his team is making their exit from the playoffs. And yes, I am completely writing them off, seeing that a team that goes up 3-0 in a series is 154-0. But it's nice to see in his case because his fall from grace had gotten rather ugly pretty quickly. Now, just to make an encouraging comparison for Minnesota and Anthony Edwards fans, at this same age, 22 years old, LeBron James had led his Cavaliers to the NBA Finals, and everyone was singing his praises when he epically defeated the talented Detroit Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. He was putting up insane numbers. He scored 25 straight points to defeat the Pistons in Game 5. And Steve Kerr, who was calling the game, had even called it Jordan-esque. So in a similar way, he was getting incredibly hyped up like Anthony Edwards has been. But what happened afterwards? He got swept by the San Antonio Spurs while having one of the worst playoff series of his entire career. That rise and fall was also dramatic, but LeBron was also just 22 years old. And he ended up just fine after that, to say the least. There's reasons to keep your chin up if you're an Anthony Edwards fan. Now calm down, LeBron fans. I'm not saying he's as good as LeBron, and I'm not saying he has that same trajectory. I'm just saying that young superstars have risen and fallen hard in the same postseason before. He'll be back, and he'll likely be back better than ever. But as for now, this is the time of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, so enjoy it, Mavericks fans. Just to touch on the Pacers and Celtics real quick, Boston also took a 3-0 lead, which was completely expected considering how Indiana was without Halliburton. It wasn't easy though, as Boston had to make up a massive deficit. Jason Tatum is once again demanding the respect of the basketball world with an epic all-around performance. But let's be honest, the mainstream media will probably just continue to brush it off. If the Celtics end up winning the championship, it will be really interesting to see if ESPN changes their tune on him abruptly, after they've basically been disrespecting him all year long. We'll have to wait and see, but as things stand, it looks like we're getting ourselves ready for a finals matchup between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. That is, of course, unless one of these trailing teams do something that no team has ever done before. But let's just say I'm not counting on it. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.